Hi, girls. Welcome to the Roundtable Dialogues, a special edition of the Wonder Woman Wednesdays. Today, we would be discussing about the wellness agenda. What constitutes this wellness agenda? Well, it actually comprises of the entire universe of clean eating, superfoods, juices, supplements, skincare routines, self-care baths, boutique gyms, yoga, mindfulness, meditation, crystals, alternative medicine. Basically, if you said wellness plus holistic anything, it started looking seductive. And the global wellness industry, which is 4.5 trillion USD, was reportedly growing twice as fast as the global economy. And this was before the pandemic. During the pandemic, wellness actually became the center stage of everyone's attention, or let me say, hyper focus, because now everyone wanted to boost their immune system. Who does not want to find some way or any way to ward off the virus and ease their anxiety? The mental health industry, too, started enjoying a renaissance of sorts. Across the world, we are seeing increased awareness, education, spending, and destigmatization of mental health issues. These are all positive mental health trends and ones that both patients and practitioners should be pleased to see. We at WIP have several members who are, in one way or the other, associated with wellness. Hence, we decided to put together this panel to discuss the wellness agenda. Today, we have with us a delightful panel, and I'm really happy to introduce you to Sonia Rastogi. Sonia is a wellness and life coach, yoga and
Hi.
meditation practitioner, and an LLP master practitioner. You have to see her Instagram, Spirit of Wellness, which I really follow very intently every week. Welcome, Sonia.
Hi, Mandeep. Thank you very much.
And then we have Hemlata Shukla Suri. She is a counseling and rehabilitation psychologist associated with schools and a Manodarpan initiative of the Ministry of Human Resource Development. She's a CVSC empaneled counselor and a resource person. And I know that she supports and volunteers for many causes, including mental health. Hi, Hemlata.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for having me. Yes.
You're welcome. And one of our younger members joins us today, Namrata Handa, who's a certified life coach and a corporate trainer. She has been in the industry, she says, for only a few years, 4 years, but she has dealt with a cross section of issues dealing with people having anxiety, stress, emotional awareness, and for children, intelligence issues, etc. So, welcome, Namrata.
Hi, Mandeep. Thank you for having me over.
My first question to all of you is, what does wellness or well-being mean to each of you? Sonia?
Mandeep, wellness is a very vast field. And for me, wellness is having physical and mental body in great health is wellness. In my line of work, it is very important to pay attention on all the aspects of well-being to attain holistic wellness. And my work enables me to teach well-being to people on a deeper level through the means of yoga, meditation, and mindful practices.
Thank you. What about you, Himlata?
Yeah, as Sonia said, she's very correctly said that all of us have, as per our work life, work field we are handling with, we have different connotations to wellness. So when it comes to wellness for me, I believe in, since I work with children, so it is something to do with their emotional wellness, their emotional regulation, as well as their control and their resilience. These things are supposed to be developed there, and then at the same time they should be happy in whatever they're doing, then working on their strengths and finding little things as happiness. So that is something which is very important for me.
Namrata, in your line of work, what does wellness and well-being mean?
I will take the liberty to answer this question from two aspects. One, that I'm an individual, and secondly, that I'm also a life coach. So, as an individual, wellness is a very holistic term, which encompasses my personal life and my professional life as well. So, wellness would mean a healthy life, a healthy lifestyle, sanity in my personal relationships, financial stability, my well-being. It also includes my goals and aspirations, where I am and where I want to be. But as a life coach, if I talk about the term wellness, it would mean what my client wants it to mean. So what whatever definition of wellness a client would have is the same definition that a life coach would want it to have. As a coach, I would not enforce my thoughts or opinions on people. Rather, I would seek to uncover what wellness means to them.
Thank you. Sonia, now I'm going to ask you about, during and post the pandemic, the wellness industry has obviously been flourishing globally and definitely in India. But this race to improve immunity became like an obsession for a lot of people. And suddenly people were following all alternative healing things, Ayurveda, yoga, neuropathy, naturopathy. But it also expanded to a lot of nutrition, fitness, preventive healthcare, and people wanted to do pranayam, and health tourism and healthcare issues started really coming in the forefront. What has been your experience?
Yes, I think what happened is people were living a very superficial life, artificial life, and few were happy with that, and few were oblivious with that kind of lifestyle. But this outbreak of COVID actually taught people that what is the real meaning of life. Instead of running around the worldly stuff, the materialistic world to earn money, they felt the need now to understand the importance of health. So it was, people were forced to take care of their health. So for me, it is very sad that people had to learn this in a very hard way, wherein priority should have been only health, and then everything comes. So no amount of money, luxury, or any materialistic thing can help you if we are not healthy in mentally and physically. So while such a thing happened and people were forced that they should take care of their health, people started pouring in, they started coming in asking for that, Sonia, please help us with the pranayam thing, how to take care of the health, how to take care of the immunity. So India being a wish guru of herbal things and teaching yoga to the people, people started understanding the importance of breath work. For me, this is the Ramban, wherein if people are taking care of their breath, their lungs are going to be healthy and in a good condition. So when everybody said the oxygen is not there and the people are dying because of lack of oxygen, I think it is not the lack of oxygen, but it is the lack of our ability to take that oxygen from the universe, which is there. So yes, I also felt the need to contribute in the society. I started offering my free pranayam classes, yoga classes, meditation classes to my society, my family, my friends. And yes, people have now understood that how important it is to take care of the health.
Namrata, how easy or difficult was it for you to move to a virtual mode as a life coach?
When the pandemic struck us, the entire world was forced to adopt to technology, and we were also forced to adopt our services to our clients online. What happens in a coaching session is it's not just what the client is saying, rather, some form of thoughts and behavior are reflected in their body as well. So while the entire world was forced to move virtual, developing trust, choosing the right form of technology, enabling interaction in a virtual world where only the face and the body and a certain part of the body is visible was a very big challenge. Providing the same amount of service, and that service has to be so beneficial to the client, was what was the biggest challenge. Creating that trust, all of those interactions, structuring those sessions, maintaining consistency was the challenge during the pandemic.
I can imagine. Hemlata, yours is a very, very difficult field. You work with younger children and kids with special needs and learning disabilities. And as you were mentioning before when we started chatting, that some of them are not from privileged backgrounds at all. So I wanted to ask you, how was it for you to move to a virtual mode for your students and parents?
Thank you for that wonderful question, Mandeep ma'am. But it really matters people to know how children with special need are dealt with in normal scenario. So that is something when we started working from, this was a utter shock for us, this forced closure of schools and visiting them physically, meeting them and granting that support which we were giving to these children. So online sessions have been actually were there, but then moving on with the same things, for CWSN was a little difficult thing for all of us, because definitely we need to have that touch, collaboration, physical, tactile stimulation when we work with these children. So evaluating my work per se, when I have to migrate to an online system, was a little challenging thing to do. So initially we simply had I had to contact and be in touch with my children, so they don't, since they have memory recall issues, very typical. So then we have to work on those abilities vis-a-vis disabilities, which I was aware about them.
And did these parents have smartphones? Tell me about that.
Definitely.
Okay.
That was something initially we were simply having those phone calls, maybe early morning phone calls, and family therapy comes handy, because home-based system was something which was handy to me, which I already had in place. Then this has actually helped me out. I had those contact programs maybe late in the evening. So this is stretching out, nothing else. When you want to reach out, there is no way you can't reach out to somebody. You have to just devise out schedules, because scheduling is something which is very important in special education. And then we have this IEPs, individualized educational plan, which we have to work. They're tailor-made things, So that was something very challenging for us. But now teachers were not there, just parents and me and children. So this is something which we did, and this is a very successful thing. And I'm working rather, whenever I want to get in touch, we can just tell them, come on Zoom and then come on MS Teams, and we are very happy interacting like that.
Good. So I was very happy to know that you helped with other people to sponsor or create resources to give handouts, smartphones to such underprivileged people, so that the kids could get educated on time. Anyway, I am going to come to the next question. Before I come to that, I want to ask, who are the people that you are following on social media? You're in your line of work, on health, nutrition, fitness, all celebrities and all gurus are talking about it. Who are the people you like to follow on wellness?
I follow, there's a guy called Luke Cotino. He's a holistic lifestyle coach. Yes. So he talks about a lot of nutrition, the importance of exercise.
Nutrition is a big thing. Yes, yeah, I know.
Yeah. And that is actually very, very important. Another one is Aisha Bilimoria. She's an athlete and she's known as a fit girl on Instagram. So in case you guys want to check her out. So she's one big inspiration. She's had so many injuries, but she keeps emphasizing on how to eat right, how to do correct exercises, how to, take care of a lot of other stuff which people usually ignore, or, they're just not aware of. There are a couple of people, I follow Sonali Swami. She's also one of the bodybuilder. And then I have my Sadhguru who, keeps me on the right path all the time.
That is true.
I always go back to these people.
Namrata, who do you follow?
I follow Sonia on Instagram. I keep seeing the way she twists and turns her body. And I remember in a candid conversation, I also told her that, doing the headstand is one of my aims for 2021, which is almost over, not yet there. So I think I will revise those goals for 2022 as well. Apart from those, I also like to follow Ruchita Divakar. I like the kind of simple tips that people offer, something that can be added to our day-to-day lifestyle, that kind of increases the amount of nutrition that you have in a day-to-day basis. So that is something that I like doing.
Hemlata, who do you follow on social media if you get any time at all?
I follow Sadhguru. I have met him personally, so I have a lot of bindings with him. I'm in spiritual leanings when it comes. It's Sadhguru, and then praying whenever I get time, and doing meditation and kriyas.
So my next thing is to do with anxiety. The pandemic saw people of all age groups experience real anxiety issues. So what did each of you face in your respective clientele? Were there issues coming to you drastically different from the ones earlier, and how are they different? I want to know any bizarre cases that you know or you can remember that you would like to share, Sonia, and then
yes, Mandeep. There are many cases I can talk about. But there is one very significant case which I want to talk about right now, and people are going to be shocked that this can happen to her. So it's a case of 3.5-year-old child. She's a daughter of one of my neighbor. This 3.5-year-old child was locked in the house with her nani nanu, and because of her parents were quarantined at their workplace, and this child could not meet her parents for almost 1 month or more than a month. And she kind of stopped talking to people. Yeah, she was when our parents came back, she stopped talking to them also. So it was a very weird case, and they didn't know how to handle it. She became very possessive, she became antisocial, she stopped talking to children, she stopped playing. So her mother, she requested me that, Sonia, if this can be helped. I said yes. So she started coming on to me. I made her friendly with my dogs. That was the first thing what I did. So initially, the child was very kind of, she fearful about the dog. But then, within 2-3 days, she became extremely friendly with my dogs, and she used to look forward to that time to come down to my house to play with the dogs. And then I started teaching her yoga, and then I started teaching her meditation and also the breath work in a very fun way. And within 2 months time, this child, she became absolutely full of fun, full of, she started playing, she started laughing, she started mixing up with the children. So for me, this was a very heartfelt experience, and I kind of felt that I've done something good in life. So she was back to the normal life. So this was one of the cases. Like her, there are many other cases of elders going through a lot of anxiety, depression, stress. But yes, I think what really helped them was some silent time, and then of course few of them were seeking some medical help as well. So yes, everybody just adopted whatever helped them.
Namrata, how did your clientele have a change of anxiety issues?
With the beginning of the pandemic, people were anxious about what coronavirus actually is. People were worried about separating facts from fiction. There was a lot of information out there in the world about what is going to happen to everybody, what is coronavirus, how is it going to spread, etc. So at that time, people were coming with issues like this. As severity increased of the pandemic, issues about grief and trauma started coming up. People started feeling they wanted someone to talk to, they wanted someone to share their feelings. So the world was forced to think about issues in a different perspective. And today, I have clients who are talking about what their purpose is in life, what are they doing, why are they doing this, what is their motivation, how can they make their lives more meaningful for them. So issues have changed over the course of a year. What people were worried about anxiety and trauma, they are now looking at self-reflection and introspection today.
That's true. Hemlata, your students, what age group are they?
They are basically from they are prep till maybe 12th adolescent age. The
so
ones
really
I work with specifically, yeah.
Yeah. So how do these kids express or share their anxiety, and what about the anxiety of the parents or the caregivers? How are you handling it, and how is the education system handling the needs of kids with special needs? It would be really nice if you can share that.
So this is like when we talk of special education, as the name suggests, it's an umbrella of various abilities, various ages, various disabilities, and at times those fears. Some children simply have those problems with their thought processes. So something like when you meet an autistic child, we have autism spectrum disorder.
Yes.
So
yes.
Every child you meet, every person you meet with autism is a new case. Basically, it's a new personality. We just don't have a single thing which can define, single kind of symptoms or symptomatic things which we can qualify them as autistic child or a person. So that's something. There are many things which we need to take into account when we talk of these children, and it was more challenging in terms of online education during pandemic, these children really scared, because many of them feared, they had anxiety that why this lockdown, why am I not going to school, I want to come and meet you.
This question is to you, Sonia, and to Namrata. And Sonia, you're such an experienced wellness coach and practitioner of so many things. I just wanted to ask you, there is the boom in this wellness industry. There's a boom in the number of life and wellness coaches as well. So, in fact, it's a joke. A lot of people say that if anyone is not doing anything, they call themselves a coach now. So, this lack of universal standard in coaching is becoming a big issue. What do you think?
You are somewhere right, Mandeep. For me, what I feel more than any certification or qualification, the important is the desire to help the other person. Somewhere there has to be a feeling of contributing to the society, giving back to the society. This is something very, very important for a person to become a coach or a therapist, or wherever they want to help. So yes, this is happening that people do a very short course, and then they call themselves coach or a therapist, and then they want to earn money. But ethically, this is not correct. So as I said, of course, people need to follow a couple of rules, and they have to have that required qualification wherein they are able to help people. So in such cases, what should happen is, not necessarily that a coach can help anyone or everyone who's in need. So there might be cases of clinical depression, or people they're not able to handle. They must refer them to the doctor to seek their help, because at times, if they just to earn some money, if they try to fool people, they are playing with their health, which is going to be more damaging to anyone. So for me, I think this is very important that one has to have a desire to help people. And when you have that kind of a desire, you will definitely not do any wrong to anyone.
Yeah, desire and professional qualification, and a very qualified and experienced. I think that's well said. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Namrata, what's your experience like?
So, according to the International Coach Federation, the biggest challenge facing the coaching industry today is the lack of a universal standard in coaching. The lack of a proper professional certification is the biggest challenge. And the second biggest challenge is that the benefits of coaching. There is a lot of questions around those, but anyone can read a book like How to Be a Coach, or attend a workshop, or read a book like Coaching for Dummies and call themselves a coach. But as a client, I would want to make people aware that they need to exercise prudence while going in for a coach. They should be able to do a thorough background check out the reviews, ask around in case maybe take a session or two, and if you feel that you're not getting the benefits, then take a sound judgment. I remember personally, I had a client who was, so the client was a mother, and she wanted her child to be more focused in her day, and she wanted her child to be more productive and find out what her purpose is in life. After 3 or 4 sessions, we realized that the child has ADHD. And when that was something that we came to know of, I had to refer them to a specialist. Because a child who lacks attention or has an attention deficit disorder does not mean that the child does not know what their purpose is, or cannot use themselves constructively. Rather, they need more direction, and only a special educator would be able to help them there. So that kind of an prudence in judgment is required from coaches and from clients.
Yeah, I think well said. So, ladies, this is a quick. Sure. Please add on.
I want to make one point here. Like being a child with the special needs, I mean, does not actually always has to do something with IQs. It doesn't mean that we have low IQs, because I have above average. Most of my girls are above average, and they have, except these writing disabilities, reading disabilities. These are the very menial issues which we can sort out with this thing. But IQ has nothing to do with learning disabilities and children with special needs.
Yeah, because telling parents as well and other people that listen, they can live normal lives if they are trained and taught in
Absolutely.
early in age is very, very important. I have
Absolutely.
friends who have children with learning disabilities and they're very successfully placed today. Um, I want to ask you girls, who inspires you, and do you guys girls have a personal mentors in your line of work? Sonia?
Um, See, pardon me if I want to give you a philosophical answer to this, because for me, life inspires me. Believe me, I take inspiration from life almost every single day. Every morning, I take my day as a new day. And of course, as you say that who's my mentor? My mentor is Sadhguru. I've
Mm,
been following him from last 12 years, and ever since I started, I've done many courses with him. I've been with him for weeks together, so I've
yes.
learned a lot. I apply all those teachings, whatever I've learned in my day-to-day life, and I try to remain happy, and I try to create that kind of atmosphere wherein everybody around me is happy.
Yeah.
So life is my greatest teacher and motivation.
Good, good. Namrata?
If I talk about my mentor in my line of work, it has to be my coach, who's my mentor, someone whom I look up to learn more about my work and my profession. But if I talk about it in a personal life, I look at my family as my inspiration. They are the reasons that kind of desire in me to move ahead and to move beyond every day. I question myself quite often that why am I here? What am I doing? What is the reason for existence? Is it just money or is it just health that I'm after or what is it? And then I think I sit back and look for balance in everything.
That's an observation I have, that the existential issues that people used to call the midlife crisis have now moved to younger people. And you are one example of that. Hemlata, who inspires you and who's been your mentor
I
personally?
again follow Sadhguru. It's just 2 years behind Sonia. I'm just following him for almost 10 years. And he's like, for everything, most of the things, he has very practical answers.
Yes.
So, I mean, going ahead with that, and in work, when I talk of my profession, it's my teachers and my students. My students are the most inspiring beings I have, because they're the
Mm.
most honest and most innocent. Even if I've been few of my cases are there with me since grade 3, and now they have reached 11th class, 11th. And when you meet them, nobody, I mean, parents, sometimes teachers, those who don't know, they come and tell me, ma'am, she looks absolutely normal. I say she is normal. Who says she has some abnormality? So
That is
something,
true.
they keep inspiring their lovely questions and beautiful, I mean, submissions. They're very honest beings. So something which really inspires me day in and day out and keeps me going with lots of challenges I
Fantastic,
face.
fantastic.
I also
Okay.
want to add something here, what just Himlata just said. I think if you are willing to learn, we can learn from anyone and
Yes,
everyone.
yes,
And especially children, the kids, I think we should learn how to be joyful the way they
yes,
are. They don't use their mind, their brain, and their intelligence.
yes.
As we grow, we forget to be happy and how to be joyful. So I think we need to look up to them that how to be joyful every moment.
True,
Yeah.
absolutely, Sonia, because they're the most mindful beings around. The way we progress with our age, our mindfulness fades. So I keep telling them this, and they know it very well. So
Yeah.
So my next question is, there is a lot of awareness regarding mental health, and this is again to all of you. Perhaps Himlata can start first. There's so much awareness on mental health now, but people still keep grappling with issues and do not see a therapist. Now there is enough awareness. It's been destigmatized. People know that, listen, you can go and do that. Uh, and people still don't approach as therapists and coaches. I mean, why? Why do they keep grappling and don't take the step? And I don't think it's for economic reasons. I know that they can spend a lot of money otherwise. Why do they hesitate?
it's
Hemlata, you want to go first?
yeah, it's a very good question, ma'am, and very pertinent to answer, because it's basically because of underlying stigma which we have. Very typical. It's a big block which we are facing, and we need to remove that. And when it comes to mental health, that's not the priority and that's not the reality. We don't recognize it. Daant mein dard hai, somebody is getting cancer. Even in our offices, they'll be given lots and lots of help. But when they come and tell us, no, mera man nahi चल रहा है, नो, मुझे लग रहा है कुछ ऐसे ही है, some feelings and thoughts are broken, so they feel little perplexed, confused, little hangover is there, they don't feel like just going on with life. If people around understand that there could be something there, which is underlying this thing, so our thoughts could also get broken. That is not acceptable in our country, so that is something which we need to talk about all the
Don't
time.
you see that it's changing? Sonia, what is your feeling? Is it
Changing.
Yes, absolutely. I think India is a country of culture that has nurtured a sort of stigma around this mental health and mental wellness. People are fearful to seek help. They don't like to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist for their mental problem because of the fear that what is someone going to say, what is their family going to say, how they're going to react. People might say that this person is a mad person or someone. So of course things are changing, and in this particular scenario I think help and support of family and friends is very, very important, so that people can be themselves, they can open up, they can openly talk about what they are going through, how they are emotionally, whatever they are feeling or they are behaving. So this kind of support is very much needed through family and friends in the first go.
Just want to add here. So something we are coming up, even CBSE at schools is coming up about this psychological first aid program, PFA. So that is something like it's an emergency in our country right now and world over. It's not just India. Like mental health is another pandemic which has come up, and depression is one of these things, because we have the youngest population across the world. We're the youngest nation with highest societal rate. So that's something very.
And my worry also goes to women, specifically during the pandemic, because the whole family was home. They were becoming the sponges and soaking in everybody's issues, and they themselves needed that little me time or talking to someone. And I did have a lot of people contact me and said that, listen, we want to talk about it. I'm not doing okay. And that's when, I mean, I think you saw that we tied up with the Mind Clan, these people, because they're a bunch of mental health professionals, and Shweta Srinivasan and Mani, who are founders of that. They started this online platform because people were having difficulty reaching out to, and it's just so easy now that you don't even have to walk into someone's office. You can do an online call and talk to a person who's specialized in helping you out. But yes, you need to spend that little money, which I don't think should be a problem. But I think most people live in denial, they need the help.
I want to give one example here. So women don't take their health, as a priority. They would like to give up everything for their children, for their husband, and then, whenever they are facing some problem, they would take it very lightly. That okay, it's maybe I'm not that valuable who needs that kind of attention. So this has to go from people's mind and understanding.
That is absolutely true. I wanted to ask
Manjeet,
Namrata
I would
the
just like to add. Sorry, I would just like to add something to that.
Sure, please.
Okay.
Please.
So during the pandemic, it also saw the rise of a lot of domestic violence and sexual abuse cases,
exactly.
even at home.
Yeah.
Yes, because what earlier used to happen was that frustration, and people were moving out of home for frustrations, and they had a lot of things to distract them. But now with COVID and everyone staying at home, women experienced a higher rate of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and violence, domestic violence at home.
That's true.
That was a big challenge for people at home.
I think all countries have been publishing these numbers, and they've been really scary numbers. I wanted to come back to that now. Every corporate is talking about that employee well-being is on their center stage and agenda and focus. Few months down the line, when things start becoming okay, I had a few HR people tell me that it's just one of the things that we tick off, and I don't know whether the whole place has institutionalized the concern for employee well-being. What is your experience? I'm sure you have clients who work in different corporates and talk about the fact that at work, this is issue. So corporates are making it kind of mandatory for having conversations on well-being. Sonia, what has your experience been?
Yes, initially lot of companies, in the beginning of COVID, every company was focusing more on their employees' health and their well-being. So a lot of companies organized these sessions, these talks, and everything. But as this COVID thing started becoming better, they were like going back to their, they started showing their budget problem or the time problem or the productivity issue and all that stuff. So I think this is not a right approach, because this is a lifestyle change and this cannot happen over one session or two session, or this is not on a need basis. This is a regular practice they need to follow. I think companies or individuals, they need to understand that this is a mandatory thing. Taking care of health and wellness is the priority, and this has to be practiced on a daily basis or on a regular basis. So regular workshops, regular trainings, regular these kind of talks has to be there, whether it's happening in the company or any individual who wants to bring that change in their lifestyle. So this is a mandatory thing, not a need basis or one of the cases.
That is true. Namrata?
So when we talk about corporates and their requirements, what earlier was a priority for them has now become like a check in the box activity, like you just mentioned. However, there are still some organizations who are prioritizing mental health, who are prioritizing talking about it, who are still holding those workshops. What happens is that an organization's goals might somewhere down the line be different from what an individual's goals are. So only when both their goals and their visions align is when we can see some kind of parity in action.
My final question to all you ladies. What would you like to be the go-to person for? Why should anyone seek yourself out? So give me a short marketing 30-second thing about your line of work and why should somebody seek you out? Sonia.
Okay, so I think anybody who wants to be happy, healthy, and remain cheerful should come back to me for such practices. I want to say this in one line: Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So this means to stop the fluctuations of mind and remain calm is how one should be. And I encourage people to stay in that kind of state by doing some yogic practices and mindful practices. So, if they want to achieve such a life, I'm here. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Please come back to me. I'll be very, very happy.
Good. Hemlata?
Yeah, so empowering with empathy and navigating thoughts with an ease and practicing mindfulness is something my USP. And of course, to deal with children with their issues is again something which is my specialization, and that is my passion. I just love to deal with children and their parents and bringing a change in their home environment. This is something very important, giving in perspective to their life in a new manner. So please come back to me in case you would like to have some advice, some suggestions, and some navigations.
Thank you. Namrata?
So anyone who wants to move ahead in the future of their choice, who wants to move from point A to point B and does not know the path or does not know how to move ahead, or anyone who feels that this is just not right and I need to get something done in order to fix this, should go to a life coach, because the magic of coaching can only be experienced and felt. It's something that cannot be spoken. It's something that you experience in the session itself. So can reach out to me through WIP or so many other life coaches, but whoever you reach out to, exercise your prudence.
Thank you. So, girls, we have discussed not also the tip of the entire range of issues that exist in wellness. This has been a fantastic conversation, but I think we need a larger forum, a platform to discuss every aspect of it. We just touched about some of the things you girls do, and this needs to be regular, because I think Scary part is that now the new variant has arrived and it is creating a different kind of a scare in people because it seems to be more lethal than the previous variants of COVID. And we don't know how the future is going to be. So we do need to live and exercise things. But as Sonia said very rightfully, that if we're looking for happiness in a certain way, we need to make healthy living, fitness, keeping a sound mind a part of our persona, the way we want to carry. Let's encourage people, create awareness within WIP and otherwise to make sure that we are able to help out people and make helping people as part of our agenda. Thank you so much for joining me today, and let's keep the wellness agenda right in the center for WIP as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mandeep.
so much,
It was such a
Mandeep.
pleasure.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.